We need a motion to allow Paul to call remotely. Kate and Betty, thank you. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Paul, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. First thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes of September 28th, 2021 with the executive session committee. Rachel and Jennifer, thank you. Any questions, comments, corrections? Jan, you did a great job. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Informational items. Randy, the financial report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This month's report, prepared nicely by Julie, has the results through August 31st of this year. Just a couple things to note. General fund, our revenues are almost 75% of our budget compared to just under 60% at this time last year, or we're running 19% higher. Most of that is in the state shared revenues, sales tax, PPRT. On the expense side of the general fund, we're almost, percentage, we're almost flat with last year, even though we appropriated $5 million in August to pay off some of the interfund loans and a couple other capital items. So on that, let's see. On the income tax, she made note that we're about $1 million above budget so far. I know sales tax, let's see, local use. Local use, we anticipated it would decline 2021, but it hasn't declined near what we thought. That was our trouble with the 2021 budget, trying to figure out, due to the Wayfair court case, what sales taxes are going to go up, how much. We knew local use would go down, but how much. So we've been pleasantly surprised on almost all the sales taxes. They've been above what we expected. Same with PPRT. Right now we're, let's see, about 1.67 million over budget so far, and if you extend it out for the year, it might be almost 4 million. Julie made note when we got this isn't reflected in this month's report, but our October PPRT receipt, when we gave the information to Scott, his response was, "Can I say holy crap?" On the other funds, there's just some notes. Generally, I don't see anything of worry. I believe risk now is now positive fund balance with the transfers that were made in and some of the other items. So if you have any questions on this report, I will try to answer them for you.
Well, that was a very positive report. I hope we can continue with that next month. Any questions from anyone from Randy on the report?
Just the economic condition, it's very hard sometimes to forecast.
I know.
We do our best, but
Absolutely.
We don't have the resources like the federal government, and they can't even guess. So
I think we're more accurate.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, moving on to Headington Oaks financial report. Paul? Or Shauna, you going to?
In your packet are the financials for Headington Oaks through August 31st, 2021. The one thing you'll notice this month, as Randy mentioned, there's some, it shows as revenue. That's the transfer for the interfund loan payoff that was approved by the board on August 12th of this year. And I'll be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Any questions from any? Yes, Steve.
Could you maybe just give us an update on the accounts receivable status and how that's progressing? And
I think that's coming up.
That's
the
a
next
separate line item?
It's
Okay.
going to be the next item. We're going to
all right,
go
I'm
through.
ahead of the game, sorry.
Any other questions? Okay, then Shauna, you want to give us what Steve is asking for?
Okay, if you go to the, with the buckets, quarter 3, the Medicare cost report has been filed, and so there is a resolution related to that cost report that Paul will go over here a little bit later in the meeting. our goal was to attempt collection of 45 to 75% of the total accounts receivable. So if you go down to actual, we went ahead and updated that for where we ended quarter 3. We have about 3.4% cash receipts. A lot of this quarter was spent on working on that Medicare report and those reimbursements that are in the resolution. The court filings, as we had said, working with the state's attorney's office, that was going to be about a 90-day process. So we have about 7.2% of the AR is tied up in the court process. So hopefully we'll have some resolution here in quarter 4 to those, where we will either have a payment plan or some cash receipts that we can shift into the cash receipts bucket. And then 23% of the AR was what was under review with RSM for the Medicare reimbursement process. And then there's 15% that is non-Medicare reimbursement review, if you will. So that's working with the state on some of the Medicaid and the managed care components of that. So we, through the 3 quarters, have attempted collection and have touched about 48% of the AR. That doesn't mean we've collected 48%, but it means we've moved it through some sort of a collections process, whether that be through reimbursement, through the court system, or actually collecting those receipts. And I can answer any questions.
Okay. Are there any questions for Shauna? Yes, Rob.
Could you just explain to me what the Medicare cost report is?
You want to handle that one? Okay. I'm going to let Paul speak to that since he works on that
Okay.
more.
The Medicare cost report is an annual filing that when you're involved with the Medicare program, it's a regulatory report that you have to make. So you go through and you basically kind of show your revenues and your costs associated with being in Medicare. And then, as I'll speak about in the resolution, there's under the Medicare program, it's permissible to put certain amounts on the cost report for reimbursement. So it's a regulatory filing that we do annually.
So if you put something on the report, you get reimbursed at 65%. Is that what I?
That's
not full.
correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Thank you, Paul. We don't have any legislative update at this time, so we'll move on to resolutions. The first one is a contract extension for Sickich LLP. Can I have a motion, please? Phil? A second? Linda, thank you. Okay, discussion. There was
I can take it, Scott. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The current contract with our external auditor, Sickich LLC, ended with the FY 2020 audit. After discussions with county administration and the board chair, we kind of reached out to them about the same time they reached out to us due to the ongoing COVID pandemic, and now with the ERP implementation taking up a lot of our time, they agreed to submit a proposal to extend it 2 more years. Next year's price is about a 2.5% increase over this year, so it's well in line with previous cost increases. And they've been advised, in accordance with our board requirements of changing the audit partner every 3 years, that after the 6th year of the 2021 audit, they would change the audit partner involved. Happy to answer any questions.
questions from anyone? Okay. Seeing none, please vote. We can't vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The second one, Paul, you can speak to. Medicare reimbursement process for Headington Oaks, where we can get that $65 back on the 65% back. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
You need a motion?
Yes, thank you. Can I have a motion? Yes, back to Sharon and Linda. Thank you.
So as we were just discussing, through the Medicare program, certain permissible amounts can be placed on the Medicare cost report for reimbursement at 65% once they are first written off. So through our collaboration with RSM, we've identified this first bucket of just under $81,750 of new write-offs that if written off by the board, we can place on the cost report for reimbursement. It's not shown here as it's not part of the resolution, but separately, there are $65,000 of previous write-offs that the board approved previously that we can pair with that $81,000. So in this first bucket, there will be just over $147,000 that we'll place on the Medicare cost report for reimbursement. We are continuing to review other accounts and amounts, but as this process is not very fast moving, we wanted to take action on this first bucket that's clearly been identified so we can get some money coming back this way. Be happy to try and answer any questions you may have.
Okay, questions? Rob?
Could you just give me a brief understanding of how you determine if something is unlikely to be collected? Like, what metrics do you use to determine if something can't be collected? Or
So some of these amounts go back to as far as 2015. It's been a number of years since we've done these collections. So we take a look at the payer source. You know, many of these in this first bucket are coinsurance amounts that would have either been paid by the resident themselves or their private insurance. So with some of these going back a number of years, we take a look at that, and if it's been outstanding here for a couple of years, there's a pretty good chance that chasing down that amount is either not going to be worth our time or is going to be very difficult. That being said, even if we write something off, we can still chase the balance of that amount if we feel that it's warranted.
and is reimbursement guaranteed on the amount that we submit?
It's not guaranteed, but pretty close, because we're working with RSM, who they do this as one of their services that they offer. So once this is approved, then RSM will do a mock audit, which they've already kind of walked through some of that in helping us arrive at some of these amounts, and they'll help identify the documentation that we need to include with these amounts when the CMS auditor would come in and look at that, so that we can know pretty sure that we're going to get that amount.
Good questions, Rob. Anyone else? Yes. Kate?
So you said that we've previously written off $64,000,
Yes.
and did we get that reimbursed through?
No, those are amounts that we've done in previous write-offs, but they've not yet been included. So they would go with this batch of 81,000, they would be placed on the cost report for the first time.
Okay.
Jennifer?
Can you explain the amount of the 147,000?
Yes, that's a combination of this 81,747 that's being presented today, plus 65,310 that has been written off through previous board action.
Okay. Any further questions? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Miscellaneous. You got somebody over there, Jennifer? No, no one? Well, it's a beautiful day for a change. That's miscellaneous, that's for sure. We've had our share of rain. So I thank you, and we'll adjourn. And we'll go into